International Editor Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, I want to talk about Sebastian Gorka and his views on Shamima Begum in just a second, but just a last point on the grooming gangs. Labour's attitude, you know, far right if you want a public inquiry, that kind of thing. The fact is, it's pretty clear to me that some of these Labour politicians, some senior Labour politicians, still think it's a bit racist, you know, to bring this up, to go after those poor Pakistani Muslim men. It's a bit racist, it's Islamophobic. Well, this attitude, this hand-wringing middle-class attitude, appears to go back to a report by an all-party parliamentary group chaired by the then opposition, I think he was Shadow Health Secretary then, Wes Streeting, which now this was adopted as official Labour Party policy when it comes to Islamophobia. This report warned, this was Labour's official view, that calling these paedophile rapists Asian grooming gangs played into age-old stereotypes and tropes about Islam and would, and I quote, heighten the vulnerability of Muslims to hate crimes. It concluded that talking about sex groomers was an example of Islamophobia. This was adopted as official policy by the Labour Party. It explains their attitude now. It explains why these groomers got away with it so long. Hand-wringing, white, middle-class politicians terrified to be accused of racism.
And this is absolutely the heart of the problem. And we talked about this last night, and I said then, and I'll say it again, everybody who has suggested that it is somehow racist to highlight the ethnicity of all these men is part of the problem. They are culpable too, because they've contributed to the culture that allowed this to be covered up and continues to allow this to be covered up. And there are commentators in the media, there are commentators on X who are still shrieking about racism and far-rightery. And we all know what that far-right smear is about. Again, it's basically alluding to racism or xenophobia.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly what it is. So Keir Starmer himself is essentially reiterating and underlining that same accusation. That is why all of this happened. You know, that's why it was swept under the carpet. It's got absolutely the square root of nothing to do with Islamophobia. I don't feel an ounce of anti-Islam in my reading of this whole thing. What I see is criminals, barefaced criminals, monsters and apologies of a human being. And I see that needs to be called out. And you know, it is utterly shameful that so many people in influential positions, powerful positions, were too cowardly to say it as it was.
Indeed. Let's move on quickly to a story I think is worth discussing, and that is that a man I usually admire. He's a damn fine guest to have on your show any day of the week. His name is Sebastian Gorka, a forthright Trump aide. He's a British-American guy, and he's now Donald Trump's official counter-terrorism aide. And he's come out, it's an interview in the Times today. He's suddenly gone all left-wing, if you ask me. He's which he won't have done, but this is a left-wing kind of thing to say. He says that Britain must allow ISIS bride Shamima Begum to return from Syria, where she resides stateless in a tent in the desert. The American Justice Department is repatriating all of its ISIS traitors, saying it is their moral responsibility to bring their Islamic State traitors home and try them in the United States. Gorka seems to think that Britain must do the same. If we don't, he says, the special relationship will be ruined. Well, my attitude to that is, and I don't like to disagree with Gorka because I've got a lot of time for him, but on this one, Seb, you know, you can shove that where the sun doesn't shine. We are not having her back. And if she rots away in the Syrian desert, I could not care less. And by the way, if we do have her back, it will cost us at least £1 million a year in security, having to watch her all the way. She's still a terrorist threat, no doubt about it. This sort of depiction of her as an innocent schoolgirl who was groomed, forget it. So I think this is a strange thing for Gawker to say, and it's something that I think Britain must summarily reject.
I mean, the only miracle is that she is still out there because of our track record of doing the precise opposite of the right thing in cases like this. If she ever came back here, we'd never, ever, ever be able to mete out any proper punishment. There'd be all sorts of hand-wringing and endless human rights cases and her right to this and her right to that. Look at her. You know, she doesn't look too sorry for what she's done, does she? Bit of a poser there. I think that it's an odd one, an odd intervention by Sebastian Gawker. It sounds like a bit of rhetoric, really. It's hardly as if genuinely the special relationship, for what it's worth and such as it is, which is not a huge amount, frankly, at the moment, is going to disintegrate as a result of this one young woman. I think that's hyperbole, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. It's a strange thing for Gawker to say. As for the special relationship, you know, I lived out there for, 10 years or so, and as a journalist, I often tried to look into what exactly the special relationship was. And usually what you found out was that most Americans didn't even really know where Britain was.
Right.
You know, there was a survey when I was there, seriously, 16-year-old kids in New York State, 76% of them thought that Britain was an island 3 miles off the coast of New York. So the special relationship is overstated, to say the least. I don't think it particularly exists anyway, but we like to kid ourselves that we have a very, very special place in the heart of America. It's something that we may be able to cash in on, because there's no doubt Donald Trump does like Britain. He does have an affection for us, so we should be able to cash in on that. But I hope that Gawker's statement doesn't get in the way. Just worth mentioning, I thought,